The Vietnam War started on November 1st of 1955 and ended on April 30th of 1975. The war was over a conflict that pitted the communist government of North Vietnam and its allies in the South Vietnam, known as the Viet Cong, against the government of South Vietnam and its ally, the USA. Although the war started in 1955, American troops started going over in July of 1965. Lastly, after the soldiers would come home from the war proud, they would get an unsettling welcome from the protesters that were against the war. To get a better view of what it was like to be in the war, I will be interviewing Mr. Brian Demarest, a family friend of mine who fought in the war for the 101st Airborne. Mr. Demarest, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So, the first question is, when you first got to the war, what was it like?
It was very surreal. The first 2 weeks, once we got into Vietnam, we flew into Cam Ranh Bay, and it was about 110 degrees out, and I asked for some water, and the guy sent me in the room, and there was like a big water bottle in there. Mm-hmm. There was cockroaches floating in it. The water was almost brown. And I asked the captain, I says, I didn't find any water in there. He says, it's in the big barrel there. And I said, the ones with the cockroach in it? He said, yeah, they won't bother you. And spent 2 days in Cam Ranh Bay, and then they flew us up to Phu Bai, which was the capital at that time of South Vietnam. And I was assigned to the 101st Airborne Infantry Air Mobile. Wow. And got to my company, and it happened to be my birthday, our first mission out, and we were ambushed by North Vietnamese regular army. And this is after 2 weeks in country, and I couldn't believe what happened. We had one guy wounded, and I had to take my machine gun down to where the action was, and we killed one, wounded one got away. And I said, what did I do to myself? How did I end up in this place? In about 90 days, it was great. Nothing bothered me anymore. I could handle it all. It didn't bother me. And it was just a new way of life.
That's good that you adapted to it. What was the most memorable part of the war for you?
I saved a guy's life. This was during monsoon, and we were crossing a swollen river. And on one side of the river, we had a rope tied on a tree, and on the other side, we had a rope tied, and we had the captain tied about 30 yards downriver in case anybody got swept away. And as we're crossing, one of my buddies, his name was Short Round. We all had nicknames. I was Buddha because I shaved my head. This guy was small, and we called him Short Round. And he got his rifle caught in the rushing water, and it took his rifle away. And he let go with his other hand and tried to grab the rifle, and the river swept him away. I was on the other side, and the captain couldn't grab him, and I ran down the side of the bank and threw my backpack off and dove in and swam down there and got him. Now, he was wearing a 100-pound rucksack, and I got him across the other side of the river. He definitely would have drowned. And that was my most memorable moment. And again, I was very proud of what I did and how I did it. And we were all like brothers in arms.
That's good. You volunteered, right?
Yes, I volunteered for the draft. I was 313 on the lottery, and I would have never been drafted. But I felt it was a duty of being a citizen of the United States to do this, and I wanted to serve my country.
That's good. What were your first thoughts when you decided to go to the war, or when you volunteered?
Well, I graduated high school and had a few issues with driving. I had quite a few tickets, and I lost my job, and my family's house burnt down, and there was 6 siblings living in a 3-bedroom apartment. And I said, this would be a good time for me to clean my act up, and so I volunteered.
That's good. How did you feel after the first time you had to fight other people?
It was you get caught up in this, and you don't, because of the training we had, I was prepared for what was going on. And we all worked in unison with each other, and we knew what we were doing, and we were along a riverbank, and we had, like I said, we had killed one, wounded one got away. And from that point on, it just seemed normal to me, the life.
How long were you there for, and what were the other people that you met were like?
I spent 1 year exactly in Vietnam, and you made instant friends because we all looked out for each other. And at night, one of us would always have to pull night duty for an hour. So because the enemy would sneak in at night, and many groups got killed.
Did you guys ever play any games?
Yes,
Time?
Not at night. We played cards. We played spades, and played for money. And we would sit around if we didn't have a mission to go on, and we'd sit around all day and play cards.
How did your opinion of the war change when you got to Vietnam?
Well, when I got there and our mission and got to meet the people that lived in South Vietnam, I understood that they needed us, and we were doing a good service for the South Vietnamese people and trying to free them. And it was sad to watch how they lived. I mean, our ghettos in the United States were like Beverly Hills compared to where and how these people lived in South Vietnam.
What were your opinions about the anti-war protests that had taken place during the time of war?
I hated them. They thought, and wrongly, that they were doing us a favor, trying to get us home. What they were doing was giving the North Vietnamese more resolve in keeping the war going, because they knew we would eventually leave, which we did. And a lot of Americans were killed because of the protesters. They did us no good. You don't protest your own people in a war, you support them. And this is the only war that ever, where the people at home looked down at us. And there was no reason for them to do that. And that probably hurt all of us as much as anything. It was sad what they were doing.
Do you still think about the war today? Do you wish you could go back in time and change anything?
That's a good question. No, I was proud of my service. I met a lot of great people, and there was nothing I could do or change. I was proud of the service. I'm proud of what I did. I was proud of the people that I saved and helped.
That's good. What was the worst part of your experience, and does it still affect you today?
Coming home, it was, people wouldn't even talk to me about the war. They didn't, my friends, my parents, it was like, it was an evil thing. Not that I did it or was there, but the protester had created so much hatred. And I think our government made a big mistake going there. And they lied to us about what they were doing and why they were doing it. And it was just a very, very sad situation that all of us, there was over 2 million people that went to Vietnam. 40,000 was infantry. The rest of them were all attachments, which are truck drivers, chefs, cooks, office. The town was as big as Monterey, the fire base that we were at, or the in Phu Bai.
That's huge. This is the last question. Did you ever receive any award for something you did? If so, what awards was it, and what good things did you do to receive it?
Well, as I said earlier, I saved a guy's life. And there was a lot of things that we did that you don't get credit for. One night I was on the radio and another company was lost, and it was monsoon pouring, helping them and guiding the group to where we were. And another time I was on the radio for 12 hours on the fire base, and we got a call from a company that was on a hill, and they were being ambushed by the North Vietnamese. And I was on the phone, I was on the radio with their radio operator, and he says they've killed another one, they got my buddy. And as he was talking, I heard a shot, and he was dead. When we sent the helicopters in to get him, everybody in that company was dead.
Ooh, that's rough. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Even though the U.S. won many of the battles, realistically, no one really knows who won. In the end, they all lost thousands of troops, and America lost about 52,200 troops. But not only that, many former soldiers that survived the war now struggle with mental health issues, such as stress, depression, anxiety, struggle sleeping, PTSD, anger management, which with many of these soldiers led to suicide. And many others suffered after the war with no jobs to get, and later many of them became homeless and lost their families. This is why the Vietnam War was one of the worst wars for America history. That was devastating for soldiers who were in the Vietnam War and even people who weren't in Vietnam. Thank you.